So there are a couple of things about color and gradients that I want to talk about. As we already know, we can go down here and we can choose fill color and we can choose stroke color. I'm going to draw a square out here, and now I'm going to double click it, and that selects both the fill and the line. And I'm going to click down here to choose a color. Well, as we know, I can choose any color. I can also set the alpha. What this means is that it can be partially see-through. So if I make a new layer, and on top of that then I make, say, a circle, hold down Shift to make a complete circle rather than just an oval. Now, I can't see through that circle. I'm actually going to put it right here. This will make it a little bit easier to see. Can't see through that circle at all. If I double click on it and I go down to the fill and I set the alpha, say, to 50%, now when I click away, we can see through it partially. So it's 50% visible, or, you know, if you're a glass half empty kind of person, 50% invisible. I can take that down, so I could say maybe only 15%. Now notice too that that only affects the fill. It does not affect the line. If I wanted to set the line to have its own, I'm going to make it a little bit wider there, I can also do that. So I could set it to maybe 86% see-through. You can just barely see it right there. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see through it just a little bit. So maybe I'll even set that to 60%. Now we can see through it even more. So you can set those two things separately. Now this is an interesting thing to point out too. You can kind of see that the line tends to overlap the fill a little bit. That's why you get kind of that double line thing going on. And of course you cannot go above 100%. So moving right along, we can access color and all of those neat things here, but we can also access them through the panel right here. We have color and swatches. Swatches, you'll notice, is pretty similar to the one down here when I would click on fill color or stroke color. It lacks the button that takes away all color, and you also can't set the alpha from there. However, you can, select your colors as normal. I'm going to select the square here and go back to that panel. Swatches. Color, however, is sort of similar. Swatches has preset colors available to you, whereas color allows you to fine-tune those. You'll notice as I click and hold down that the top bar that is right here shows the new color, and the bottom bar shows the color that is currently already selected and available. So if I go over here to this yellow, the square becomes yellow. If I want to change the stroke, of course I'll need to have the stroke selected. So I double clicked. Now I will click on stroke color. You'll notice that I can swap between these, and now I'll set the stroke color to that. I'll make it a little bit thicker so it's easier to see. So it works the same way. I click and hold down. I can change various things. If you are familiar with hexadecimal value, you can type that in. And if you are familiar with any numerical values for color, you can do that as well. For the most part, you'll probably just go ahead and probably start off with a swatch and then switch to fine-tuning it a little bit in here. I'm going to actually change this color so it's a little bit easier to see. There we go. I have this selected. You'll notice this drop-down menu which says solid color. This is color type. We can change it to none, meaning in this fill color now there's nothing right there. We can't see anything. It is completely blank there. We can change it back to solid color, but the problem is then we have to fill it again, because basically it's saying, hey, take away that fill. I can set it to linear gradient, and basically what that means is it is transforming, I'm going to turn this off so we can see that a little bit better, from one color to another. See how it's kind of cyan colored here and green colored there. We can do the same thing for the pencil tool as well. I can set it to a linear gradient, and if I want to change the colors, so right now the line is the same colors as the fill, I double click on that little box that is the color and set it to something else. And now you can see that it is transforming from one color to another. You can do some neat effects with that. If you want to add, say, another few colors within your gradient, you can. You just click in the bar right down here, and then you can go ahead and change that to something else. And you'll notice it updates automatically. I can add as many of those as I want, and it'll do all sorts of interesting things. So then, If I want to, I can also set a radial gradient. What that means is it's a circle. So you see the circular gradient there going on. Those are kind of nice if you wanted to do, say, a faux kind of highlight on something. You can have a circle, or sometimes you even see that with websites. They'll have just very slight radial gradient to make something kind of stand out. If I decide I don't want some of these colors, I click on the little box and hold down and drag it off, and then it disappears. However, because it's set as a gradient, it has to have at least 2 colors, so I can't get rid of the last 2. If I want to do that, I will set it back to solid. Bitmap Fill will allow you to choose an image off your hard drive and then fill it with that image. I don't recommend that though, because we want to use primarily vectors in this class. So try not to do that. You'll want to use linear or radial gradient or solid color on the things that you're doing. So the next thing then, I want to set this back to linear, is I want to show you how to do a gradient transform. So I have this right here, this nice little gradient that I have going on. Under the transform tool, I have the free transform tool, which allows me to move the object, but there's gradient transform tool, which allows me to manipulate an actual gradient. So I just clicked on this, and I click and hold down where that arrow is, and I can make the gradient get smaller or make it get larger. I can rotate it, say I want to have it at an angle. In fact, I might even change this just so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So I can angle this. I have to move up just a little bit. I can set it back. I can do all sorts of things, really. Make it larger, smaller. And that's kind of useful if you want to have just a tiny little gradient or something. But there is a little bit of fine-tuning that you can do here that I want to go over. You'll notice that underneath the gradient selections, we have some things here such as reflect color and repeat color, which are pretty much exactly as they sound. Repeat color then repeats the color in the gradient. Reflect kind of has your gradient and then flips it over and repeats it back and forth in a pattern that's a little bit less jarring than, say, this, where it has the sharp edges that are the end of the gradient. Typically, you'll probably just use the extend color, which is the automatic one that is chosen. The default value, if you will.